We're going to go ahead and get started pretty quickly here because we have a full agenda for this hour. But first, like we always do, I would like anybody who has not yet been introduced to this group in this space in the all staff meeting to stand up. And what I want you to do is to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what your job is here on campus in our division and where you came from.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Houston. I'm with Career Services. I'm a career development specialist. Actually graduated from UWG in 2013, so I'm a whoop. And actually worked at the library for a year before I went on to graduate school. So,
awesome. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kendra Smith. I am in the office of the registrar. I'm a transfer evaluation coordinator. I also graduated here in 2016. And I come from Athens Tech. I was in the registrar office there as well.
All right, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Brittany Barron. I am an academic advisor in the Advising Center, and I transferred from Georgia Highlands College, where I was an academic advisor there.
And you are?
Hi everyone, my name is Shelby Scott, and I'm the coordinator of supplemental instruction in the Center for Academic Success. I currently serve as the, I previously served as the graduate assistant for this position, and I am in the CSA program.
Hi, I'm Jenna Volpe. I'm the grad assistant for West Georgia Outdoors, and I graduated from Florida State University in August.
Hi, good morning. My name is Claudia Lyerly, and I am the grad assistant for first year programs. And I graduated from a school in Mexico called Tecnológico de Monterrey, and I graduated in December.
You get the farthest traveled award. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so thank you very much for coming today. We have a packed schedule, and we're going to get moving on that straight away. And I would like to invite Claudia to come up and talk to you about... Oh, she's leaving. Goodbye, Claudia. Oh, it's over here. To talk to you about Title IX.
Fun stuff, huh? So good morning, as you said, I'm Dr. Claudia Lyerly. I am the Social Equity Officer and Title IX Coordinator here. So I would have interacted with some of you. Some of you make it very clear that you do not want to interact with my office, and that's fine. But it's always a pleasure working with individuals from Student Affairs. So that's what I'm going to be doing. The training is a little bit different, and it's really based on the cases that I'm seeing. I think I need to do a little bit more education on civil rights law, because I think most of you, even in your studies, student development cases, you would have been exposed to Title IX, but you know, it's a requirement for us to continue doing this kind of education. So just bear with me as we talk a little bit more about civil rights law in general. This is just to get you guys going. identify with that, that everything kind of comes back to the core values here at the University of West Georgia. And we're very familiar with that, that we're really aiming to be the best place to work, learn, and succeed. So the underlying goal then is that we want to be in an environment that is productive, that really encourages individuals to be comfortable even though they're different. Good? And to get these innovative ideas from each person, and ultimately without regard to those protected categories. You know, just eliminating bias altogether, right? Whether it's protected by law or just as an individual, you know, we know, hey, you know what, I could be a better person. So ultimately, that's what we're striving for here at the University of West Georgia. So OCR, EEOC, they mandate that, one, we have a coordinator, OCR specifically. That would be me, someone to oversee sex-based discrimination. EEOC kind of spans some more civil rights law. So another requirement is that the institution actually publishes a non-discrimination statement. So those of you who are in, let's say, admissions, people who work in HR, you'll see on our documents that we do not discriminate on the basis of race, sex, gender, religion, and so forth, or any other law protected by state or federal law. So ultimately, I think each individual can reasonably conclude that harassment or discrimination doesn't end well. Good? It doesn't end well for the people who are involved. It doesn't end well for the people who have to deal with it or be involved in seeing that kind of behavior portrayed around them. It ends with people being humiliated, ashamed, degraded. And not only that, it really affects people's job performance. Good, and ultimately, I'm sure your VP wants us to see people who are fired up, ready to work. They're here, they're you know, very appreciative of other people's differences. So when they come and they experience any kind of harassment or discrimination, they're gonna have a low morale. You're gonna have people with a decreased job satisfaction for their individuals and even their co-workers. And it is going to lead to absenteeism. We don't want people who are absent from work on a consistent basis, not because of them feeling harassed or discriminated. And we all know the bottom line, right? Money. All of that affects the institution, it leads to poor publicity, and then of course, people may decide not to come here. So that's the big picture, right? So if we don't get it right as individuals or making sure that we do not harass individuals or discriminate against them, the big picture is that it's poor publicity for our institution. So everyone plays a role in this. Everybody. So we need to demonstrate mutual respect for each other. And it is a reasonable expectation that all supervisors will lead by example. Good? So we do have our individual beliefs, but when we're operating in the capacity that you're hired to operate in, you kind of have to sometimes step out of those little preferences that may appear biased as a supervisor and be that person who is going to make the right decision, good, and portray the right example. So quick overview. We have Title VI, and that is more towards students, right? Title VI is a race and national origin discrimination law. Then we have the sex-based discrimination, Title IX. You're familiar with that. We do not discriminate on the basis of sex or gender in any of our programs or activities. And the big thing, normally at the end, is because we receive federal funding. So no case has really gone to that extreme where funding has been pulled, but that's the big threat right there. So if you are found to be in violation, the extreme penalty could be that your institution is no longer qualified for your students to receive federal funding. And Title IX doesn't just span students, it is right across the board for faculty and staff. Then we have retaliation. Retaliation is linked to most OCR laws and also Title IX. And what that simply means is that no person should be treated adversely because of their participation in a protected activity. And it also goes over to ethics. Good? So the auditing department might be working to actually assess misappropriation of funds, just poor management of state resources. And anybody who's involved in that kind of situation should not be retaliated against either. So those, I see some people from accessibility, they will be more familiar with OCR Law of Disability Discrimination, that's section 505. Good, and that's more aligned with the students. Then we have age discrimination. That's run through OCR also. Broader scale, there's Title VII. This deals more with employment. Good, Title VII covers race, color, religion, sex, pregnancy, and national origin. And earlier on, I spoke about supervisors being examples, and even though we have individual beliefs, let's talk a little bit about religion. Because we are in the South, right? Christianity is that dominant belief. But as supervisors, and I say this sometimes because of the cases that I see, supervisors have to be careful that they are not appearing to coerce their staff to practice their beliefs, right? Where you're not getting the consent of individuals to participate in religious activities that you're leading or initiating. So we're not saying you cannot practice, we're saying make sure you're getting the consent of individuals on your team, and making sure they are up to it, that they want to participate in that activity. Because sometimes people may fear, penalties for saying, hey, I don't believe that. I don't want to participate in that. So make sure you're checking in, okay? Make sure. Equal Pay Act prohibits sex-based wage discrimination between men and women in the same establishment who are performing under similar working conditions. And then you have the Age Discrimination in Employment Act that protects individuals over the age of 40. Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, that goes in hand with the Age Discrimination from OCR, and then Title II of the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008. So, let's talk sex and gender. This is where I'm thinking most of you are familiar with this information. However, bear with me, give me some positive facial expressions, okay? Don't check out on me. So USG back in, I believe, 2015, when I started with them, kind of initiated a policy to govern all its institutions. Mind you, every year it changes, they're always doing an update, but you know what, I really like that they're making an effort to get us all under one umbrella. So it means that if we're getting training, it's the same training. It's the same changes right throughout the institutions under the University System of Georgia. And the policy states that we do not discriminate on the basis of sex or gender in any office, education, or employment programs and activities, and will not tolerate sexual misconduct. That in itself is extended to the University of West Georgia. Pretty much we're saying the same thing because we're governed by that policy. So what is Title IX? No person in the U.S. shall on the basis of sex be discriminated from participation in or benefit from any programs or activities associated with the institution because we receive federal funding. So I spoke about the Title IX coordinator, that's a requirement per OCR. I spoke about making sure that we have a non-discrimination statement published, but there's also the need to publish grievance procedures, right? Individuals who are involved in our cases need to be able to go on our website and see every step and know their rights. Last night we got some tough questions last night at the Hunting Ground movie. Going up after that Hunting Ground movie, you gotta be brave because it's kind of one-sided, you know, and portraying Title IX in a very negative way. And mind you, a lot of work needs to be done under Title IX, but I really think, I'm a very objective person, I really think at the University of West Georgia, we're making a lot of progress towards partnerships, working with counselors, health services, just right across the board to make sure we eliminate sex-based discrimination. So the sexual misconduct policy looks at unwanted sexual contact, sexual harassment, gender-based harassment, sexual exploitation, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. And the dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking kind of came out of Violence Against Women's Act, right? 2013, it was like, hey, coordinators, you do that job. And tag we're in. So whatever kind of reports relating to dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking has to be directed to the Social Equity and Title IX office. So just want to define the two types of sexual harassment. We have quid pro quo, and we have hostile environment sexual harassment. Quid pro quo is where you have some differential in power, where you do this for me, and that person in power can influence some type of performance or outcome, right? So if it's, let's say, professor, administrator, that professor can determine what grade they get, right? And there's some kind of sexual favor, sexual activity involved in that exchange, this for that, right? It could be supervisor versus employee, good? So there's that power dynamic right there. And hostile environment, there doesn't have to be a power dynamic, but what you're looking at is a severe or persistent behavior, can be pervasive, unreasonably interferes with or denies that person from coming here, participating in the programs, or coming to work, right? Because that behavior is around them or directed towards them, right? So we have to be careful about, one, what we're posting on our walls, good? Sexually or explicit, posters, that can interfere with another person's comfort level to come in and do their job, right? Or conversations in earshot, because there is like that third-party harassment that creates that sexual harassment. So be careful about what you're talking about. So even if you're talking to an individual who is consenting to that kind of conversation, the individual over here cannot focus because of this sexually explicit conversation, talking about, what they did last night or who was involved in that. I'm sorry, it's normal language for me. But, we have to be careful about that kind of behavior in the workplace, okay? Or even the things that we send in our emails are sexually suggestive, and that one-time act might not rise to the level of harassment, good? But if it's persistent, pervasive, and all those different elements that we look for when we're working these cases, then it's a no-no, all right? So just be careful, handle yourselves professionally, and always kind of read body language. Some people want to hug, some people don't want to hug, right? We gotta check in, watch those facial expressions, watch when the person is stepping back. Hey, not everybody likes to be touched, okay? And sometimes it's not even harassment, but we have to have a conversation like, dude, hey, based on the feedback, just don't hug, just don't touch. I know you're talk with your hands, but that person feels like you're invading their privacy, okay? Might not rise to the level of investigation, all of that, but we have to cut it off early so it doesn't get there. So overall, it's unwelcome conduct, it's of a sexual nature, and it kind of lands in any one of those two for us to deem that is sexual harassment. So the institution's obligation, per OCR, we need to investigate. Whether it's small I, big I, good, whether I'm just doing an initial review on the front end to kind of be that gatekeeper. Is this really a potential violation of Title IX or not? Does it land somewhere else? I move it along. But whether it's a small I or big I, we have to do something when a report comes in. Then we have to end the immediate harassment. When we're putting in interim measures or, whatever the case is, we have to end it. So that individual who is experiencing that behavior being directed to them is put in a safe environment. Then we have to prevent it from happening again. And that's where a lot of institution gets in trouble, because sometimes no measure is put in place, or sometimes whatever is put in place was not adequate enough to stop the behavior from repeating, right? So we have to work as campus partners to make sure that happens. What I do does not happen over in my office alone. It's constant partnership. Then remedy, campus-wide, right? So it's not just with the immediate situation. We have to look at programs, activities that is going on campus-wide, and get that going, right? Make sure at an institutional level it does not happen again. How many of you have seen this video? Awesome. Majority of you have not, so that's good. Can you take that?
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat, going, but you wanted tea last night. But if you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
So that always sums up consent. And I present that to employees and students, because the core of every investigation is to kind of figure out, if consent was given. The majority of the cases, not all, because there are some policies that right out the gate, no, you shouldn't have done that, with or without consent. Children, 16 and under, no. That 16-year-old might think, I'm into it, but law says, no, that cannot happen. So there's some things that, we're certain, right, that is a no-no. Amorous relationships, right, where you have direct supervision over a person and you can influence their performance and so forth, no, okay? So there's some things that are strictly prohibited, But the bottom line is consensual behavior, right? Can we determine, can we, based on the evidence, gather that consent was given? And notice a lot of emphasis was placed on someone passing out. So there's a lot of education around incapacitation in my job, right? Students especially, where they need to know my guidance, and I hope everybody else is doing that. You know, you should tell students whenever alcohol is involved, kind of step off, right? Just, hey, go take a shower or something. Tomorrow is another day, right? Move on. Because the last thing you want is for somebody to wake up the next morning and didn't remember what happened and end up going to a responsible employee like you and saying, hey, I was raped. Good? So the guidance is once alcohol is involved and you're heading towards that, you know, sexual activity, you're unsure, you know, that red light, green light, amber test, and you're getting to that amber, you're not sure, step back, right? Let that opportunity pass. Another day will happen. Put the tea down, okay? All right, so what constitutes notice to the institution? Notice, based on Department of Ed, is saying that when we have student-on-student sexual-based discrimination, if a responsible employee knew or in the exercise of reasonable care should have known about the sex-based discrimination. So we're going to define the term responsible employee. Then EEOC is saying initial complaint is made to supervisor, HR, or office designated to address matters relating to sex-based discrimination. So those two subpoints kind of tell us when we're going to be judged as knowing of this sex-based discrimination. So if any one of you in here who is not a privileged employee, hands up if you know that you are a privileged employee. 1. Privileged employees. 2. Woo, a lot of hands over here, right? So these are individuals who have been employed in a confidential role. So you might be trained based on your qualifications coming in as a licensed counselor, but here at the University of West Georgia, we did not hire you to do that job. Good? So you are not operating in a confidential role. You're not a privileged employee per your job description and what we hired you for, right? Is that good? So everybody else in the room is considered a mandatory reporter, a responsible employee. You are, if not hired in a confidential role, is considered to be a mandatory reporter. What does that mean? If you know, the institution knows. That's what that is saying, per OCR. Good? If you know, let's say a report was made to you in January of 2017. You held on to that information, didn't share it. Maybe you promised the person, hey, I won't tell anybody, you know, we have a good relationship, I'll just keep it to myself. Then the individual who spoke with you makes a report to OCR saying, I spoke to employee X back in January 2017 and nothing was done. When OCR comes in, does an audit to evaluate that particular report, they're going to ding West Georgia for knowing back in January 2017. It's that serious. So all we require you to do is to kind of know your role as a responsible employee who is supposed to pass on any reports of sex-based discrimination. And guess what? I'm hired, HR is there to determine to what level it should rise. So your job is to simply make the report. You do not have to evaluate how extreme the case is, nothing, just report. And if you're not directly involved in the situation, we don't need to talk to you, that's it, right? Pretty simple. And you just divulge everything you know about the case. Who you've spoken to, who was involved, did you help them to get to resources? Who did you interact with? Did you make a call to the parents? Was there an immediate threat to the individual or to the campus? Did you contact the police because of that immediate threat? And that's another thing. Responsible employees are not required to contact the police unless there's an immediate threat to self or the community. We do not put that on you. We try to get the victims to take the lead on that decision. A lot of times, processes move ahead with the police, and they're not ready for that, right? And that being said, even when they come to my office, a lot of people don't know this, we're checking in. We're saying, hey, first of all, we're going to do an assessment to see if there's threat to you or the community. If that happens, I'm sorry, respectfully, I'm going to move forward without you. Good? Because we have to protect you and the community. If that is not a dynamic in that case, I'm going to respect the wishes of that person to the best that I can to kind of set the pace. Right? So if they're not ready to work directly with me in an investigation, and some individuals may decide, you know what, here's a written statement, that's everything, just move forward, I don't want to speak to investigators again. So they want the investigation, but they don't want the hassle of going through it. We can respect that. But just share with those reporting to you that we try our best to make sure they're taking the lead, right? Unless there's a threat to them or the community, I'm going to move forward respectfully without them, okay? So a lot of times, we just, you know, get bombarded with a report. So there is just some language that we have right there, and Dr. Lingrell passed out the sexual misconduct protocol. That red card references what we're talking about right now. When students report to you, what do you do? What kind of steps do you go through? All right, so in general, someone walks up to you. They walk up to you and they're like, man, something happened last night. That in itself, hey, trigger. Something happened last night. Could it be sex-based discrimination? Your mind should already be going ahead, right? To possibly, you know, make a good guess as to whether or not it could go in the direction of a sexual misconduct. If that's the case, kind of stop. You're the employee, kind of manage that conversation. Let them know, hey, before you say more, I need to stop you for a moment. Please know that the information you choose to disclose to me, if it involves sexual misconduct, I will have to report it to the proper campus officials so they can take the proper steps to ensure your safety. And talk to them about you not promising them confidentiality. That's a huge piece. A lot of times, especially faculty, they get in that place where they have that student-professor relationship and they end up making promises of confidentiality, right? They have to tell the institution, as in, you know, those people designated to handle these cases, they have to share everything, right? So try not to commit yourself to playing that confidential role. The language is you will share the information with those who are hired to oversee that. Need to know basis, right? So make sure you're plugging that in, right? But otherwise, you're not just gonna go around, hey, guess who came and spoke to me last night? No, we don't expect that. So govern yourselves professionally. And let them know their options, right? It's important that they know if you don't wish to move forward with this conversation, to continue to disclose to me, you can go over to the counselors or patient advocates. Talk to them because they don't have to report to me, right? Those who are in privileged roles are not mandated to make reports to me, right? So individuals may decide, that's what I want to do. I just want to get over it, get through it, and continue with the school. And they can offer, you know, resources to them. Talk to them about the criminal side. Hey, the police is on campus too, if you choose to go that route. If you think you're in immediate danger, make that report. And sometimes, based on the situation, walk them to that office. You know, just to show that's what we do. It matches up with our core values. We're going to support are individuals, but you know that you're limiting how much you get involved. Beyond walking them there and making that report, that's pretty much it if you're not directly involved. And then mention, of course, Title IX, the institutional review side. So criminal is separate from Title IX, two separate investigations, which is not dependent on each other. I'm not mandated to stop what I'm doing in the Title IX office because the police is running an investigation. What we do, though, is that we work together, right? Because there are times when the information collected by the police will help my case. So, we will talk about what's a reasonable delay. So I am not, penalized for not acting promptly, right? Because that information will help. So it's all about partnership. So I'm running out of time here. We spoke about every information that you should report that. Names, persons involved, details of the situation, contact information, confirming that they're safe, and any other requests for assistance. Of course, those are the contact information. Over on the Student Affairs side, there is Dr. Whitaker. He is a Deputy Title IX Coordinator over on the athletic side. I'm sorry, I need to update my slide. The person in HR is now Christina Brogdon. She is your new AVP of Human Resources. Sincerely apologize for that. And then we have Laura over in athletics. So we do have different catch points across campus, right? Where we have deputies. They're set up to get that report. But beyond that intake, they do nothing further. And if the case is, with an employee, yes, I'm going to continue working with HR. If the case is with Student Affairs, I am going to continue working with the Dean's office. Athletics, I'm going to continue working with athletics. And, it's general right across the board, right? I do work with VPs and supervisors just to keep them in the loop about what's going on in their division. And that's done at a very high level, so they don't necessarily know the details of the situation. In the event that things are appealed up the line, we have to manage that. So I'm wrapping up overall the process. The case comes in, I'm that gatekeeper. I'm going to determine if it's a potential violation of policy. If it is, I'm going to assign it to investigators, and that's a separation of power per policy where they're not trying to get a one-man show going. So I'm not just going to get a case and I'm working it and I'm making decisions about that. The investigators work the case. I see some faces who have been trained as Title IX investigators in here, so that's good. It's a good spread right across campus. So they get that report back to me. I meet with the immediate people involved. I try to see if they are willing, based on the report and the proposed sanctions, to enter into an informal resolution, meaning, hey, I'm good with this, I'll deal with these sanctions, I don't want to go through a formal hearing. Right? If I cannot get them to agree, then we're moving to a formal hearing, and based on whether or not they're students or employees, that determines where it goes, right? We have the 4.65 policy that talks about disciplinary proceedings for students, and everything student related, if that student or the perpetrator, is a respondent, reverse. If the respondent or the perpetrator is a student, then it goes to community standards. Good, to go through a hearing. If the respondent is an employee, it's directed to HR per employee procedures. Okay, so I work the case, gets to the report, no informal resolution, and it branches off based on who the respondent is. And that's just how the policy is written. They work the case, the hearing, they make the decision, and they issue the findings, right? So notice that apart from that initial review that I do, I'm mainly overseeing this entire process from beginning to end, right? So it's not a one-man show, which I really like. So anybody I spoke about this already, is strictly prohibited here at the West Georgia and right across University System of Georgia. We prohibit retaliatory harassment. Good. So even if you're aware that someone chose to exercise your right to make a report, whether it's civil rights related, Title IX, whatever it falls in, misappropriation of funds, be careful how you interact, what you do, what kind of decisions. Always think before you take action, especially if you know they were involved in a case, because they may think it was related to their report, okay? All right, awesome. I think my time is up. These are takeaways. What Title IX is, it's not just here, it's also expansive. So any programs or activities, whether they're on our campus, study abroad, down the road, it doesn't matter. Once they're associated with the institution, you know you're a responsible employee if you are not hired in a privileged role. And we just spoke about the process. And that's it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I know that Claudia said this, and I want to make it really, really clear in our division. This type of behavior is not acceptable in our division, and sometimes what happens is that employees and supervisors don't want to make a big deal. They don't want to create a situation. And what I can say is that not reporting is much more hurtful than reporting, and the activities that go along with that in terms of reporting, we take very, very good care to help protect people through those. If you are being harassed in any way, we want to make sure that we address that in our division. Now I'm going to take a complete pivot. Complete pivot. Oh, I need the thing. So in the last year, I have been involved in 3 developmental relationships. I did get developed a lot, but I've been involved in 3 developmental relationships. Those are meant specifically to help me become a better leader, a better person, and in all 3 of those relationships, I have had the person that I've been involved with say, you need to let people know a little bit more about yourself. They think certain things about you, and those aren't necessarily the true things about you. And so I'm going to do what I'm calling a leader spotlight. This is a new thing. I'm not asking the other leaders to do them yet. You may want to when you're doing it. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. Now, I run the risk of this seeming like not a very humble activity. But I will indulge your patience in this because the idea is that you get a better sense of who I am through what I'm about to share with you. Okay, so we're gonna move on into this. So this is who many of you think I am, right? This is the one you see a lot of me, and so that's because most of our interaction is at work, and I am most of the time in my uniform, my work uniform that I have to have at work. But I'm going to go way, way back. I'm going to go way back and give you the whole story. So this is how it all started. Now that's my sister. This was before my brother. I have a younger brother. It's 5 years younger than me. But I want to tell you a little bit about my childhood. A lot of people think because I'm a vice president, somehow I had I certainly enjoy privilege. A lot of privilege because I am a white male in this society. But there are parts of my background that weren't so privileged, and I want to share maybe some of that with you. I grew up in Ohio, in a really small town. It literally has 3 stoplights. At 11 o'clock at night, it blinks yellow in both directions at each stoplight. So that tells you a little bit about how active this town is. My parents were divorced when I was in second grade. I lived with a single mother during that time after the divorce. She was a hairdresser. My dad, we did get to go to my dad's on every other weekend, and he worked at a paper mill in a town very close to us. So very, very blue-collar type of an upbringing. I would say, although we didn't know we were poor, I would say we were poor. That there were times that we engaged with the local social services in our family. And so it wasn't an easy childhood, but I guess at that time I didn't know it wasn't an easy childhood until I looked back at it from this angle. I moved when I was in 10th grade to my father's house, who had remarried and had a stepmother. And luckily I did, because that's where I got my passion, my understanding of higher education. She was the first person I really encountered in all of my family that had a degree. She was a teacher, and she graduated from the Ohio State University. I-O. My mom, during this time, had some mental health issues. And so I encountered those as a family throughout my existence as a child. So that wasn't the reason I moved with my dad. Actually, the reason I moved to my dad's house was because it was a school that had a little better athletics, and I was a three-sport athlete. That's what got me through school. I was not a great student. So I participated heavily in athletics. And just in case you're wondering, football, wrestling, and baseball. Just, you know. So after that childhood, I graduated from high school. Thought you'd like that one. Yeah. And just in case you are a child of the 80s, some of you weren't born there yet, but just in case, do you remember the greatest American hero? Anybody remember that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I actually wasn't the actor, but I played one as often as I could to get as many dates as I possibly could. No, that's not true. So, after that, I went into the Air Force. I went into the Air National Guard to get my the GI Bill to go to school. I told you my parents could not support me to go to college. And so that's me there on the left as a squad leader in my squadron. I worked on the middle plane there is the A7. It's an old Navy plane. I was a mechanic on the gun system of that plane, and then switched to the F-16 later on. I was in the Air Force for 11 years, Air National Guard for 11 years, and really it was because of my participation in higher ed that I couldn't stay, because I was in admissions. I was doing evenings and weekend work. I had a family. I just could not continue to do the one weekend a month. That was when things were getting a little hot in terms of the Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Some of my friends went to those and served in those. And so I really felt it was my opportunity at that point to focus a little more on my career. Then I went to Bowling Green State University. There's no OH or anything in that. It's just go Falcons, okay? And that's where I met my wife. So my wife, Karen, many of you know her. Yeah, that was the 180-pound Scot, just in case you care. I was the first of my extended family to go off to college. I had two other cousins in my extended family that went to college after me, but pretty much my entire family have not, until this current generation of my kids, have not really gone to college. And so there was a little bit of a stigma to that, actually. The stigma was, oh, highfalutin, kind of guy going off to college. So that was a little bit of, they thought there was a privilege in that also, and there certainly was. So I met Karen. We had kids. They didn't look like this when they were born. I'm not going to give you the baby picture. This is my daughter, Hannah, and she is in Nashville now. And this is my son, Drew. Many of you know Drew because he's actually worked here at the university. Actually, Hannah did too, for a little bit. And we have a lot of fun in our family, so this is a time where they are laughing together. They do this quite often, and so it's just an opportunity to show you a little more about my family. Oh, wait, he's not in my family. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that up there for a little bit. Just take it in, really. Just take it in. Take it in. Okay, so again, a few more shots of us. We came to West Georgia in 2005. So been here about 13 years, and it's been a fantastic place for us, a great town to live in and raise our kids, and obviously a great institution to be involved with and to have the privilege of being a leader. Again, Karen there with Wolfie, he's not part of the family, really, I guess, but. And then wanted to give this one to you. This tells you a little bit, you never see me like this because this tells you a little bit about how much fun we have as a family. And you don't get to see this a lot because my job many times requires me to not be around you, right? And to do things behind the scenes so that we can have a better experience and a better existence in our division. And so there is a fun side of me. If you can tap that sometimes, many times you don't get to see it. I really enjoy riding motorcycles. If you look in the mirror, yes, those are my guns. Right there. Yeah, got that one. We like to travel. This is us in Washington, D.C., as you can tell. We like to cruise. I enjoy cruising. Haven't done one this year. We get to do one next year. Next year's our 30th wedding anniversary. Yeah, thank you. And so we're going to be going on a Mediterranean cruise next year. We've never done a 2-week vacation, so it'll be 2 straight weeks of party here at West Georgia while we're gone. Okay. We do enjoy a cold adult beverage every now and then, but this was really for the tropical vacations. You're getting a theme. We're not mountain cabin type people. We are definitely beach type people. And more tropical vacations. But we have other obsessions, and our most recent obsession is this little girl. This is Lydia. Lydia is our granddaughter, and this is a cool outfit that her Aunt Hannah gave to her. She has not yet been on the back of the motorcycle. My guess is her mother would say she never will be on the back of the motorcycle. And this shows a little more of her attitude, the real attitude, not the cool one. And this is how I know her best as a sweet little girl. And this is actually in our yard. After we had planted these trees, she helped water them, and they are growing at about the same pace as Lydia is growing in terms of her height. So I wanted to end by saying I also love Chinese food. Kind of a weird ending, right? But I love Chinese food. Hong Kong is gone. I'm just devastated, number one. But I always am the one that gets these stupid fortunes. So this one is, the rubber bands are heading in the right direction. If anybody knows what that means, please let me know. So I don't know if we'll do any more leader profiles. It may be something that you would enjoy, but this gives you a little bit of an idea as to who I am. And do what? When you shoot the rubber bands, I don't know. They're going forward. Do rubber bands? I guess they could go backwards. That would be painful. So anyway, thank you for putting up with me for just a little bit of time and giving me an opportunity to show you a little bit about myself that you normally do not get to see. So thank you. And the last thing I want to do, where is Emily? Where is Emily? Emily, you have a 2-minute, yeah, well that's what we said, right? Oh, 5 minutes? Okay, we're going to be, well that's not bad. We're going to be on time, but those of you that have to leave for appointments at 9:30, please do.
Okay, I'm just going to talk quickly about homecoming. Yeah, get excited. So, our theme this year is Once Upon a UWG. And we would love for you guys to celebrate school spirit and your love for UWG by participating in our events and competitions. We have a homecoming portal on OrgSync you can take a look at, and we also have a website on the UWG website. Just put in homecoming, and we have a great web page with all the events coming up. If you can read this, this is just a lot of the events. There's actually a lot more. This is a lot of the student events, but the ones I would like to plug are the Presidential 5K, the Homecoming Globe Parade, and the Pet Rally and Bonfire, and then also the game. So the parade, we're really hoping to get more departments involved in the parade this year. So the parade is on Thursday, October 18th. The lineup begins at 6:30 at West Georgia Drive near the Biology Building, and we will start promptly at 7:30 p.m. The route goes on West Georgia Drive, around the Coliseum, Murphy, goes to the bookstore, and ends at the Greek Village. So we will be sending out a Google form soon where you can sign up. It is free to participate. There's no set lineup order, so just literally you come and line up and we'll help you start that. Be creative. Items you do need is glow items, so it's going to be in the dark, so to see you, we need glow items, lights, glow sticks. You can be involved in a walking unit, not Unity, car, truck, or float. There will be prizes for the first, second, and third place winners. We're still deciding the prizes, but again, you'll probably be judged on school spirit, homecoming theme, and creativity. So we will announce the winners at the homecoming bonfire the next evening. And these are just a couple examples of past floats and walking units. So this is one last year. So this is the College of Business, I think, and they did really cool glow light up Wolfie shirts, if anyone wants to get those. And then any information just about homecoming, you can email or call me. And then Lauren Adams and UREC is also going to be helping with the parade registration for departments. So again, we will send out an email to the whole division and all staff with more information to sign up. And that's it. So really quick, thank you.
Okay, excellent. See, you actually did it in like 3 minutes. That's fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's the end of our program. Appreciate your participation this morning. Remember the Title IX things as you go through your normal workday.